It's 3:15, and that means it's time for
The Real Deal with Bill McNeil.
That's right. Welcome once again to The Real Deal with Bill McNeil. I'm your host, Bill McNeil, and you're probably wondering exactly what is the real deal today.
Hey, good question.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes. We've got some more comic industry news. Today we're going to go over Marvel Comics and talk about what all these Destiny of X teasers are all kind of leading up to. And we thought it was going to be an event. I guess it is kind of an event. If you thought House of X Powers of 10 was, well, I don't know. Is it an event or is it a soft relaunch? I guess it's more of another relaunch for the X-Men at Marvel Comics. It's a good thing it's been so long since Marvel Comics decided to reboot their entire X-Men line. Now, this isn't the entire line. I did say it's a soft reboot. But over the half the titles are going to change out and be replaced with new ones. And we're being promised enormous status quo changes, as well as an amazing high profile creative team, new creative team on Marauders. It's crazy how they identify these things now. So I don't know about you guys. My money wasn't on a soft reboot for the X-Men franchise, considering in 2019 with Jonathan Hickman's House of X Powers of 10, that was pretty much the reboot. Also in 2019, we've got the reboot of Uncanny X-Men that we were promised. And then since 2019 with House of X Powers of 10, obviously Jonathan Hickman was the writer of X-Men, and we had another reboot on X-Men itself with Jerry Duggan taking over and a new X-Men team being named. We are not getting near enough reboots in the X-Men universe, are we? Does it feel like they're running out of ideas? Or maybe they're just not ready to run up the white flag and admit defeat and give up. They probably should at this point. The fact that they're going back to the well, essentially less than 2.5 years later, to do another soft reboot, after the amount of enthusiasm and excitement that was generated by Jonathan Hickman in House of X Powers of 10 for the first age of Krakoa, now they're calling it. I believe we called it Dawn of X. Of course, we went through the next period, Reign of X, and this is going to be the Destiny of X. It's Marvel Comics. This is all they know how to do. They don't say, you know what? You know what would help the sales if we had a consistent narrative with high quality storytelling. No. That's not the issue. We don't have enough number one issues. We need to reboot everything and get some new number ones out there. I'm disappointed, even though I wasn't excited for this. This is the least exciting thing Destiny of X could have ended up being, but it's so unsurprising. It's not even funny. This should have been able to sniff this out a mile away, but I guess, I don't know, there's like this little bitty piece. There's like this little nugget that's like stuck in here that still has just like this ounce of hope left, that somehow things are going to get righted and Marvel will not continuously fall back on the same crutches that have held them back for the last decade. And not only are they continuously doing that, the cycle just gets faster and faster and faster. So we will get into the details of Destiny of X and this soft reboot of the X-Men universe. Obviously, this is following the Hickman era that was brought in by House of X Powers of 10. He also was the writer on the flagship X-Men series, also had that series of giant-sized X-Men. I think those ended up being a disappointment. I think there's a lot of changes to those, it sounds like. Also, obviously, Hickman's Inferno is going on as we speak. I had been reviewing each issue individually with Skip and Tosh. I'm going to run it back with Doc on This Week in X-Men on Sunday. So if you want to hear our thoughts on Inferno, it'll be Doc and I. Perhaps Skip and Tosh will be able to join us as well, but I just, there's no room for it this week, to be completely honest. Of course, this is also going to be following up on the 10 lives, 10 deaths of Wolverine, which we knew was leading into the second age of Krakoa, the second Krakoan age, whatever they want to call it. Are these ages all going to last 2 years? Not really sure. And certainly in the Destiny of X teasers that Doc and I went over in depth last week, it is suggesting that Destiny of X will be exploring multiple alternate timelines, future timelines, past timelines. Obviously, there's a lot of ground to play with when you have Moira and her 10 lives that she's lived, and there's been 10 outcomes, but the mutants always end up losing in the end. It's such a good setup by Jonathan Hickman. We're going to look back in like 15 years, and it's going to be one of the great what-ifs in Marvel Comics history. What if Jordan White and a cabal of lesser talented creators didn't drop the ball and ruin what Jonathan Hickman had set up? I honestly believe that. This information is coming out of Marvel.com, and this is what they had to say about Destiny of X, and we're going to talk about the titles that are coming up, and then I have some speculation on the ones that we don't have information on. This is what Marvel.com says. Rising out of the ashes of Inferno and emerging out of the vital time-traveling mission in 10 Lives of Wolverine, 10 Deaths of Wolverine. Is it Lives or 10 or X? Who cares? Comes the second Krakoan age of X-Men, Destiny of X. Mutantkind's future is reshaped once more as Krakoa's greatest triumphs and most crushing challenges still lie ahead. As last week's Choose Your Destiny teaser showed, the possibilities are endless. And that's about the extent of it. There's also a quote from group editor Jordan White that I'll cover here in a few minutes. Obviously, I had an in-depth video about him yesterday in a recent interview we had with Adventures in Poor Taste. I'm skeptical that anything positive really can come out of any of this as long as he's in charge. I do think at this point, when you look at the dire straits that X-Men have been in, the inconsistent narratives, the overwhelmingly terrible events that have happened under Jordan White's stead as the group editor, not great writers is a problem. Terrible oversight is the real overlying problem. Once you fix that, you probably can get some better creators in there. And the ones that you are stuck with that maybe aren't quite there, maybe you can actually get them better. But that certainly isn't happening. But I covered that yesterday. No words about Jordan White. We will talk about that quote, but we got a list of the actual series. Missing will be Excalibur, X-Corp, and Sword. Now, Excalibur has been on since Dawn of X. That was one of the first titles out there. That was the Teeny Howard one. X-Corp was also a Teeny Howard title. That was completely superfluous. When they announced it, it was so similar to what they were doing with Marauders and some of the other titles, with the Hellfire Corporation and whatnot. It didn't seem like it mattered. Like, why would you even do this comic? Read the first few issues, absolutely terrible. Sword has been one of the most promising of the Reign of X titles. It was like, man, this thing could be so cool, with the ideas behind it, with what Al Ewing was doing, but it kept getting interrupted again by all these events, and it never really got an opportunity to get its legs underneath it and do anything. But that thing had a lot of potential, and of course, by the end, it had kind of morphed instead of this, the spaceship and all these mutants with the ability to kind of to jump or whatever, to teleport, that it kind of became the Araco on Mars series. But that one is no longer being solicited because that series apparently is over. We had already had the cancellation of Cable, X Factor, and Hellions. So that's 6 titles essentially off the board within a matter of months. And we have a new, tighter lineup. Apparently that's why we are getting all these miniseries. They were just biding their time and canceling off the stuff that wasn't working until we got to this. So there are going to be 4 returning titles, 3 with no creative changes that we know of. 4. New Mutants, X-Men, Wolverine, and X-Force. X-Men, Wolverine, and X-Force all make sense. Those are pretty much the best-selling X-Men titles that are out there. I'm a little bit surprised by New Mutants. It hasn't not really been moving many units. When I was reading it, it was terrible. It has VI Outlet on it now, so I imagine it somehow got worse. So I don't know why that title's sticking around, but apparently it is. Now, there are no creative creative team changes in there, but Marvel is promising within the promotion revolutionary status quo changes to go along to alter these titles, which I think is strange because we just had an enormous status quo change with X-Men, right? The whole new team and everything. We're gonna change it again. We just had the vote. So we do have another returning series that has a new creative team, and that's Marauders, with Steve Orlando as the new writer. They're touting as this is some type of like superstar creator. It's like, it's fucking Steve Orlando. he's okay every now and again, but for the most part, if you're counting on a really high quality story from Steve Orlando, you're going to be disappointed. More often than not, he doesn't deliver. Is he better than Tim Seeley? That would be an interesting debate. That would be a good nerd fight for comics aficionados, but I think he's about in that ballpark, if maybe not a little bit worse. So the new Marauders team, not exciting. Steve Orlando is just your run-of-the-mill, generic, untalented writer, which is kind of part of for the course for the most part with X-Men. So I guess he fits in with the X-Men Slack team really well. Now we have 4 new titles that have been launched, that are being launched. We have no idea who the creative teams are. I have ideas of what these things could be leading into. One of them's a surefire bet, and the other 3 are more shots in the dark or educated guesses. The first one is called Legion of X. This is clearly, we saw this at the very end of Way of X, and then they had that one shot about Onslaught where it said to be continued, like the Legionnaires, where it's essentially you got Legion and you have Nightcrawler in a team. Now, I guess, they're operating in his head or something like that, but they're the Legionnaires. And this will clearly be an offshot of Way of X and that Onslaught one-shot series. But this will actually be a series. I imagine Simon Spurrier is going to be writing this, as he had teased out that something was going to break the internet tomorrow, and then this came out. I don't think this broke the internet. I think people are so used to reboots and relaunches and new number ones at Marvel Comics. It's like, oh, it's Tuesday, so you're not really going to break the internet. You want to break the internet. They're like, we're not canceling any books for a year. We're not going to relaunch anything for a full year. People will be like, what? Like, what is wrong with Marvel? Do they have confidence in their creative teams and in their direction? That would be mind-blowing. At this point, that isn't going to break the internet. But I have Legion of X. It's going to be that Nightcrawler series with Legion. And I'm almost 100% certain Cy Spurrier will be writing that one. The next title is called Knights of X. My assumption, because Tini Howard has been in the X-Men Slack since day one, and the way it is explained to me, once you get in there, like, it takes an act of Congress to get you out of the X-Men Slack unless you go willingly, a la Brian Edward Hill. So my guess is Knights of X is going to be the replacement for Excalibur, and that will be the Tini Howard series. Probably still working around in Otherworld. We know that we've had the new Captain Britain Corps, with the new Captain Britain and all that stuff, and Captain Avalon and all that crap that nobody was reading before. They're rebranding it. I imagine they're rebranding it, calling it Knights of X, and it's going to be the Tini Howard vehicle. Maybe they'll make some changes as far as the makeup of the team. Hopefully they'll get Gambit out there, and he won't have to be embarrassed anymore, because Rogue is on the X-Men now. So hopefully that happens. I say get rid of Jubilee and Shogo while you're at it. But I imagine that's where Tini Howard and whatever she was working on end up on Knights of X. Immortal X-Men, I believe this is the series that is the Kieran Gillen series. We know that Kieran Gillen is coming into the X-Men office. They try to cover his face, but everyone was like, Kieran Gillen was just in an interview last week, and I remember that door jam. And so we know Kieran Gillen's going to be on one of these. I imagine that Kieran Gillen is doing the Immortal X-Men. I don't know what this one's about. And perhaps other people have speculated. Just looking at the name, we know that there was rumors from Jonathan Hickman back in the day that there was going to be at least a miniseries focusing on the Five, I believed, and there was going to be one on Moira. Perhaps this will be one or the other. If I were to guess, I would say Kieran Gillen is going to be writing the Immortal X-Men with a focus on the Five. and their place in the X-Men universe. How are you going to make that exciting? I don't know. So that could not that could be something that doesn't happen, but that does seem to be something in Kieran Gillen's wheelhouse. And if someone's going to make that concept cool and do something with it, I think he could do it. Obviously, this could also be an exploration of Moira X as well. The final title, and this one is just the worst idea ever. X-Men Red is returning. If you've never read X-Men Red, during the X-Men Red, Gold, Blue era, X-Men Red was the drizzling shits of an absolutely putrid X-Men lineup. They were all bad. They were all bad in the end. There were some high moments here and there for some of these, but X-Men Red was just the fucking word. So why they would reuse this name or this title, I don't know. They are trying to, you're hampering whoever this team is and whatever it's supposed to be. You're putting, you're weighing it down. It's like you're trying to destroy it before it launches. Obviously, we just had X-Men Green as well. That didn't exactly garner a lot of positive feedback. When I see X-Men Red, I see two possibilities for this one. This could be the replacement for Sword, and they stop concentrating on what's happening on the space ship, and they just go down to Arakko permanently. Maybe that's Al Ewing with a few trips up to Brand and that team up there every once in a while. That's a good possibility. The other one is this could be related to the return of Madeline Pryor in the series finale of Hellions, which I believe comes out this week. That could also be interesting. I was very upset and sad that Hellions is no longer with us. That was the best ongoing title at Marvel Comics, until it got canceled. It was just fantastic. I don't want them to saddle that idea and what they were doing with it with X-Men Red, but I think there's a good possibility. It would make sense for Zeb Wells to be doing it if it was that, or it would be Al Ewing if it was the Sword replacement. It feels like Zeb Wells is kind of being positioned and moved over to be the guy on Amazing Spider-Man starting about the midpoint of next year when they relaunch that title for the 60th anniversary. So who knows on that one? What a terrible name. Why would you rehash something that was absolute dog shit from day one? Who knows? So those are my speculations as far as the titles, who the creative teams could be, and what they could be focusing on. Obviously, we'll get more information in the days ahead. This is what senior editor Jordan White, the group editor for the X-Men and a card-carrying member of the Legion of Doofuses, this is what he had to say. The journey of the Krakoan age is far from over. Our long-term plan that all our creators have been working on in our secret council chamber has only just begun to come to fruition. You can almost feel him swirling his evil mustache. With the filling of the 2 empty council seats, the reign of X has ended, and it's time for Mutantkind to reach for their destiny. And that's the quote. The 2 council members, obviously, he's talking about Destiny, who's been resurrected, even though she wasn't supposed to be, and the other one would be Colossus, who is being controlled by the, what is he? Is he the scribe? He's the something. He writes stuff down, and Colossus doesn't. He's obviously been infiltrated, and they don't know that. There do appear to be some enormous changes as far as what's happening in Destiny and X. We're not supposed to have precogs on the island due to Moira. She does not want them around. When we look at the big promotional image from Lionel Francis Yu, we'd see Destiny, but next to Destiny, we also see Blindfold, who has not been around since right before the Jonathan Hickman X-Men started. That character was killed off, I believe, by Matthew Rosenberg. So there, obviously, we have precogs on the island now following the Inferno and 10 Lives, 10 Deaths of Wolverine. That's in the promotional image. The other thing of note, I think this is probably just in there to get people talking, is there is Deadpool. He's got a sign that says, "Help me." He's not supposed to be on the island. He's made it a couple of cameos there. I do not imagine we're going to see Deadpool as a permanent fixture in Destiny of X or in the X-Men titles, but he doesn't have an ongoing right now, which is strange, since they overplayed him so bad there at one point. So I don't know. What do you guys? Are you excited about Destiny of X? Are you excited about these titles? Do you have better guesses than I have? What do you think what do you think is going to be Legion of X? What do you think the creative team? or Knights of X or Immortal X-Men or X-Men Red. I definitely want to hear your guesses. Definitely want to hear who you think's working on those, and that's the big news. Obviously, we'll be talking about this on the Comics Aficionados with the whole panel, and then Doc and I we're not going to go into all this information, but we will talk about the promotional image and anything that he thinks is interesting on Sunday as well, along with Inferno. Thank you very much, and I'll see you later.